demo to refer back to, so we could do this. So let me just crash through this, and then I can help you guys after. Okay. All right, and this is going to be recorded too. So if you guys need to refer back to it later, feel free. This is going to be for our virtual island. I'm just going to show you kind of a rocket concept, right? So remember, in our islands, when we make our virtual islands, they need to do 3 things. So everybody's island's got to do 3 things. Whatever those 3 things, it's totally up to you, but you should be able to press 3 elements on the island and things will happen. For this demo, what I'm going to make is, first I'm going to build a simplistic island using Pro Builder and probably Polybrush just to add some sculptural detail to it. And then I am going to create a rocket and some UI buttons that I will use to launch the rocket, have it fly around my island, and then crash and explode, right? I'll show you exactly the plugins that I use to make this happen and kind of the steps involved to do this. So I'll try to knock this demo out in about an hour, so just stay tuned and watch. You don't have to follow along, but just try to keep tabs as I'm doing it and whatever. Hold on one second. Let me turn these monitors on so you guys can see it. Okay. So again, for our assignment, we're going to be making these floating islands, think like Avatar, and the island's going to do, 3 things, 3 actions, so we can instantiate these islands around the room when we're done, and hopefully have these really cool 3D interactable AR objects we can play with. But to make one, I'll show you my process to do so. And first thing I'm going to do is inside Unity, I'm going to go to my package manager, Window Package Manager, and I'm going to import Pro Builder. And I'm going to install that. So we'll let Pro Builder install. Okay, and Pro Builder is installed. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for another plugin called Polybrush, and I'm going to install that as well. Okay, so I've got Polybrush and Pro Builder installed. Inside my Unity scene, I'm going to go ahead and close this animation window. So I have my default layout like this. I'm going to come up to Tools. I'm going to dock my Pro Builder window. So that's Tools, Pro Builder window. And once this shows up, we'll just go ahead and dock this inside our space right there. And then Polybrush, I usually like to dock Polybrush over here by the inspector. We only have so much space and we don't have a dual monitor setup, so you got to kind of make do with what you have. But we don't need Polybrush just this second, but when we, might as well. There, Polybrush, when I load it up, kind of looks like that, right? I like to put it above my inspector, just right above, so you can access it right there. Just easier if you put it there so you have access to it. And again, the reason we dock them is because if they're not docked and you click on your interface, those windows would go behind the Unity interface, making it very hard to actually work with them. So you want to make sure you dock those windows. Okay, so in my scene view, I'm going to go ahead and build a Pro Builder object that I can then start editing. And to do that, I'm just going to go New Poly Shape. And in my new poly shape, let's go ahead here. My shape settings, because I want to do some sculptural detail to it. Let's see, I'm going to make it, let's just make it like 10. 10's kind of, that's fine. 10 by 10 by 10. And we'll build that shape. So we get a nice big cube that's 10 by 10 by 10 big. Right? Good enough for our AR island, right? But then what I need to do is I need to add some subdivision so I can actually do some sculptural work, because right now on this cube I just have 4 or 6 sides, right? I can't really do any actual sculptural work to this. I could just kind of move these around, and it's not really going to give me my island shape, right? So just go Command Z. Okay, so with my cube selected, I'm just going to go into Subdivide Object. And I'm going to subdivide it again. You'll see it's adding these divisions. I'm going to subdivide it again. And that's pretty good. Actually, you know what? Let's go back a couple. Let's taper the top of this. So that's just how I would do it if I was building an island. Just come up here. Just scale that top. And now I will just kind of move some of these out. Round it out a little bit. Pull these guys out. Now with this shape selected, again, just subdivide, 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 something like that. It's pretty good. And then we can go ahead and smooth it. So we'll come up here and just add some smoothing to it. And so one of the cool things with Polybrush is it lets you sculpt an object, especially ProBuilder objects, with these sculpting tools. So in here, you'll notice we have Sculpt on Meshes right here. I can just click that button. And right away, I have this little, once I click that, I have this little kind of node right here, brush, that I can change the size. Oh, whoops. Change the size on. I thought I could. Huh, I guess there's no hotkey to change the size. But we can, where's the size of the brush? Hold on. Outer radius? Oh, there we go. Okay. So here we can come in and actually start sculpting on this mesh, right? So because I'm making an island, this is perfect, so I can get that like undulation for like an island, right? I can come to the bottom here and just kind of pull out some of these little areas and just kind of scrub around on this mesh to just sculpt it somewhat into some kind of floating rock island thing, right? So come in here, and I'll just kind of scrub around until I get something that looks island-esque, right? A little bit bigger, and we'll increase the strength pretty good. And I'll just keep sculpting this and turn this into my fabulous island, right? And this is a really cool tool available in Unity, especially if you use ProBuilder. It's just nice to be able to go in there and actually just kind of sculpt on the geometry, because there is nothing really available unless you use like ZBrush or something outside of Unity to do this kind of work. So super helpful just to have this. You know, on the top of the island, we can come in here and do some little hills and stuff like that. An alternative to using the terrain tools, right? So I'm just tapping around here and building my island structure. Right. And maybe I'll just pull a little more down here so we get it just right. All right, say that that works. All right, so there's my nice floating island. Maybe I'll pull the sides out here a little bit, the top. They also have a smoothing function, which is kind of nice, which I believe is this one right here. Smooth, where you can just kind of paint over all the sculptural work that you've done to smooth it out. So if you need to just relax some of that geometry so it's not so crazy, you can come in here and do that. And all I did was just creating, this was from a cube, right? So I started with a cube in ProBuilder and very easily just turned it into some nice kind of floating island shape, right? So if you're having trouble building your islands, I highly suggest using Polybrush to kind of get those different shapes. It's a really good tool to do that, to at least create your base, and then from there you can go and start adding in all kinds of extra stuff, right? Okay, so that's good. I'm gonna go back into Unity. So we've got this basic texture on here right now, but let's change that as well. Let's make this some kind of cliff or dirt texture. So I'll go on the asset store really quickly and see what I can find here. Let's see if there's a nice rock texture we can use for this. Let's see, so we'll go rock texture. Let's see what we got. Free. Let's see, desert rock material, that looks great. We'll use that for now. Use that guy. That looks awesome. Let's download that. Perfect island base texture. Let me import that in my project. Okay, inside my scene, on my ProBuilder object, I just need to go to my material editor and set up a new material for this this base right here. So I'll just go into, I think free was the folder it gave me, desert rock. There we go. Materials, got desert rock. Let's go ahead and click on this guy, our material editor, and I'll just add in, material editor, if I can add this in, let me see. I'll add in my desert rock. Alt 2, and there we go, right? And we'll go ahead and close that tab. I don't know if I'm super thrilled with that material, but we can edit it. If I go to this rocky material, let's just change its tiling to, I don't know, 0.25. Like that. That looks a little better, right? Okay, good enough. And maybe I'll just change its hue setting here. A little more dirty rocky. Let's see. There we go. That looks good. Okay. All right, so I just basically found a material on the asset store and applied it to my ProBuilder object here. It's a pretty good base, right, for a floating island, right? Pretty simple. If you wanted to dress it up, you could download some other things off the asset store, like maybe some rocks or some trees or whatever, and throw those in there. That would help as well. Let's just do that. Let's just get a couple free rocks here. Let's see. Rocks. I think there's some really good free rock packages. We just go to free. And I believe in here, free rocks. There you go. There's some cool ones. Rock pack. There we go. Let's get that guy. Perfect. Download this. Accept. I'll throw that into my scene as well. Having the asset store at your disposal kind of really gives you no excuse not to have like some decent looking stuff in your files, right? So use it, try to find good stuff to throw into your islands and make them yours and make them look cool. Looks like, did that import? Rocks, rock package, there we go. Okay, so in my scene, right, I can just come in and grab some of these prefabs. Oh, these are great, right? Some nice rocks here. There we go, just kind of stick these into my rock here, right? And we'll just dress this up a little bit. Put a nice little obelisk on there, and maybe some stuff below, down here. All right. All right, so take advantage of the asset store. There's a lot of cool stuff on there that you can use that'll help you out with your projects and what have you. It's good just to kind of, use filler stuff and just fill it up. All right. And I don't know, let me see, can I just duplicate some of these? Put some of these in here. And just try to make this thing look somewhat decent. All right. Okay, good enough for now. All right, so let's say that's my floating island. I'm super happy with it. All right. I don't know. Let's have a little more rock. These rocks are kind of cool. Let's use them. Throw another one in there too. That one. Okay, good enough. All right. So I'm going to take all these rocks and throw them into my cube, which is my floating island right here. Let's call it island. And good to go. All right. Okay. So there's our floating island. That's all good. If I wanted to, I could get more stuff like trees and whatever, but let's not worry about that right now. What we want is a rocket that we can shoot and have fly off this thing and then crash into it, right? Let's make a little launch pad for our rocket. So in here, I'm going to go into Pro Builder, and I'll just grab a cube. That's fine. And I'll just build a little launch area for my little rocket here. Super simple. Something like that. That's great. And I'll just make a new material for that. Create a material, and we'll just make it like a metal. And I'll turn this to darker. Turn that metallic up. There we go. Great. There's our little launch pad. All right. Of course, I can make this much cooler, but that's fine for now. Okay, so we've got our launch pad, and we've got our island, and now we need to make a rocket that we can actually use to shoot around. So let's just try to make a simple rocket really quickly. So again, in Pro Builder, I'm just going to go to New Shape, and I'll probably use a, what is it, a cylinder? All right. Build that guy. Let's just go ahead and turn this into a rocket really quickly. Let's go up here. All right. And let's go ahead and modify this so it's got, at least looks like a rocket, right? Go here. And let's just hold shift if you need to extrude. Come down here. There we go. All right, great. There's our rocket. Let's go ahead and make some new materials for that. We'll just say create material. We'll call this rocket base. And then we'll just duplicate that, make a nose and a back part. Rocket base we'll just make red. And metallic, I guess, whatever. And then the rocket back part we'll make black. Jetpack, great. So on these guys, I'll just come in here, and oh, let me set up my materials really quickly. So again, I'm just going to load in 3 rocket materials I have. Okay, right there. And right here, I'll just select. One of the things I love about Pro Builder is you can use multiple materials on a single object. So you can literally select just the faces you want to apply a material to, and with your material editor open, you can just say, hey, let's make those the black one, right? Which really helps out for variation if you're making, you know, different models that have different texture maps in certain spots. You can do a lot with that. All right, so let's say there's the base, and let's go up to the top and grab all these faces. We'll make this our rocket base 1. All right. Oh, now we need to change the fuselage, right? So let's make that rocket base, bam. All right. And then I can click on my whole rocket, go to my smoothing, and just apply some smoothing to that to give it a nice smooth shape. Okay. So now I've got our little rocket. That's great. Let's go ahead and give it some wings, right? Because the rocket needs wings. Let's go ahead and make that really quickly. So in here, I'll just close this and new shape. Just make, that's great. Build it. Oh, no, let's not use that. Hold on. Let's go ahead and make a fin. Let's make it 1, 1, 1. Build it. Okay, and I'll just construct this into a little fin really quickly. Something like that. Perfect. Drag material on it. And we'll just duplicate this and throw it around our little rocket here. All right. Make our rocket look like a rocket. Let's see. Okay. There's that guy. Let's see. Just attach those, and we're off and running. Okay, so we've got our little rocket, right? That looks great. Okay, so let's go ahead and take all those pieces and just put them into the cylinder, and I'm going to call this guy my rocket. Okay, so we've got our rocket game object. We can go ahead and save that as a prefab if we want. Put that in our scene if we need to reuse it. And we're ready to have something launch. Okay, next thing we need to do is set up our rocket to have a couple things. One, we want some type of trail or rocket propulsion that activates when we turn this rocket on and turn on some kind of particle effect that shoots out the back of it, right? So to do that, what I'm going to do is create a particle effect that I'm going to attach to the back of this rocket. So I'm going to go ahead and lift my rocket up a little bit right here and create a particle effect that's literally going to be attached right to the bottom right here. So I'm going to go Game Object, we'll go Effects, Particle System, and I'm going to do a custom particle, and it's not going to be one that's shooting up like this. What I'm going to do is just align this right in the back of this rocket. Let's go ahead in the particle system attributes. Let's go ahead and turn off this poly brush. And here I'm going to pre-warm looping, that's fine. Its speed, we're going to set to 0 so we can see it. Its shape, I'm going to set to really small, probably like that. And its simulation space is going to be the world. So as this thing moves, it'll create kind of like a little trail, right? So we're going to attach it to the back of this rocket. So as the rocket shoots off, right, we're going to get this little effect, right? We see that, like the smoke that travels around with it, right? So I'm going to just hit that up on the back of the rocket right here, and maybe I'll make it like, you'll get more like of these little orbs, right? The more we add in our emission. So we only have 10 right now, but if I go like 100, right, as this thing moves, it should have a pretty nice little smoke trail, right? The other thing I'm going to do is on my little smoke trail here is I'm going to change its duration. So the time on these I'm going to make, we'll make them like 3 seconds long each. Their lifetime will also do 3 seconds. Then we're going to change their color over lifetime. So they fade out. So just like smoke, right, as this thing's launching, it's going to have some type of fade out. So what we'll do is we'll say color over lifetime, and we'll change its settings from full to none. So these should fade out nicely over 3 seconds. All right, great. All right, so we got a nice little smoke trail. So I'll go ahead and put that on the back of my rocket. So we'll call that rocket trail, or smoke trail. All right, and I'm going to attach that to my rocket. So it's going to be child of my rocket. All right, and you'll notice when I did that, because I've kind of construed my rocket and stretched it and did some scaling to it, it acquires those same transform settings. Whatever I did to this initial object, right? I did some scaling stuff, I stretched it and things like that. My particle will do the same, right? See how the particle got stretched and kind of weird? So to fix that inside my particle effect, I can come in here and say, hey, scaling mode, instead of local, meaning it's using the local transforms that it has, and it has these weird ones on this object right now. We're just going to say, no, let's use the hierarchy, and that'll change it back to its normal transform settings for that particular object, right? So let's just test this real quick, right? So if I move this rocket, what's going on here? Doesn't want to, of course it's not going to do anything. Well, so I'm not in play mode. So if I go play, and then let's just go to my scene view. Oh, hold on. Turn maximize on play off. Play it. Click my scene view. Should be able to move my rocket around. What's going on here, people? Hello. Oh, there we go. All right, so there we go. Right. So as this rocket goes, we should get this nice little smoke trail that'll follow with it. Right. So just kind of testing out that particle effect. That looks great. Okay, perfect. All right, so we're almost at launch, right? We're really close. Okay, so I'll put that back, turn this off, back to my scene view. So I've got my smoke particle effect. So what's good is when I launch this rocket, I could turn that particle effect on, right? So its visibility I can turn on, and we'll immediately have this nice little smoke trail. We also need some type of, I guess, thruster particle, right? But we don't need to do that for now. We'll just use the smoke trail. I think that's enough for the launch sequence. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to animate my rocket to come up over my island, come down, and then crash into the side of it, right? So to do that, what I'm going to do is grab my rocket. Let's go ahead and we'll turn Pro Builder off right here so I don't have that. And in here I'm going to go Window, Animation. My rocket's selected. Let's go ahead and dock our animation window. And in here, I'm going to create an animator for my rocket. So we'll call this Rocket Animation. Right. Save. So I want to make 2 animations for this. One, it's launch, and the other just an idle state. So it'll just sit there and just get ready to launch. Right. So the first one we'll make as the idle. So I'm just going to hit record. And I'm going to set its origin position. We'll say right there. And I'm just going to copy those frames and put them at like 1 second down the line. So it'll just sit there and do nothing, right? Then I'm going to make another clip where it's going to be rocket launch, right? So rocket launch. And on this clip, the rocket's actually going to, let's go back to rocket animation real quick. Let's grab these keyframes. Control C, let's go to rocket launch. Control V, it is actually going to fire up into the sky. So we'll launch up. Oh, let's go turn our recorder on. So auto set keyframes, remember to set the recording function on. So the rocket's going to launch up. All right. It's going to go over a little bit. And it's going to kind of bank. All right. So, right, it's going to launch up. Right here, it's going to get higher, it's going to turn, right, it's going to go up. I'm just kind of hand animating this right now, so it might not be the best looking rocket, but good enough. it's going to go out of control. Let's move this guy down here. And then it's going to crash right into our island, right? Like that. Yeah, yeah, exactly. North Korean missile test. All right. Okay, so that's good. I could probably adjust this animation to be a little better, but good enough for now. Let's just play it really quickly and see how it looks. Wonderful. a little jerky, but it's fine. All right. Okay, so there's our rocket, right? All good. Okay. So we've got our launch. We've got our idle state. Now what we need to do is first add a couple of things. So on this rocket, it needs to have some type of collider, which I think it already does because it's a Pro Builder object. And it does. We've got a mesh collider, so we need to set that so it's a trigger, right? Let me see, will this land? Yep. So when this rocket hits something, something should happen, right? So I'm going to go ahead and put that back. I'm going to look at its animator really quickly. So on the rocket itself, we go down to its animator, and let's see what we got. So rocket animation, that was our idle state. And rocket launch was when we fire it, so we're going to go ahead and set up a transition for rocket launch. On rocket animation, we're going to set a parameter so it just stays at the idle state. And to do that, we come in our parameters, and let's just make a trigger, and we'll call it launch. And what we'll do is right here, turn off the exit time, so it won't play to the next animation, but we'll add launch as a trigger. So we can just call launch and it should play the rocket launch animation. Right? If I go back to my scene, all is ready. This is good, right? It should, if I press, where's my game camera at? Let's go ahead and set that up really quickly to look at our scene really quickly so we know what we're looking at. Okay, let's put it over here. There we go. Great. All right. Get a nice dynamic shot. There we go. Amazing. Okay. So there's our scene. So if I press play, it should. Great. So the rocket doesn't do anything. It just sits where it needs to. And now what I can do is call launch and have that actually animate, right? So to do that, just to reiterate, last week we created buttons to trigger things, right? We created those buttons, like world space buttons. Well, it's 2 weeks ago, right? So what we can do is in our scene, just for review, we can go to game object, UI. We're going to create a button, right? Now, when we initially create a button, it sits on a UI canvas, which is overlaid over your scene, right? To put that button in our scene, to use it for AR, so if this was actually sitting in the room and we went up and clicked on the actual button, to make that a world space button, we need to change our canvas properties. Anytime you use UI elements, just for review, but anytime you use UI elements that are in your scene, you need to change your canvas in which they sit in. You can't have UI buttons outside of the canvas. They need to be contained in a canvas container. That's how they work. It needs that to work. So in order to do that, we just use our canvas as kind of like a container for this button. So what I'm going to do is change my canvas properties from overlay. Overlay just means it's overlaid over your scene. So if I go to my game view right now, you can see it's just sitting over the top of my scene, right? That's the current render mode that this canvas is set in. But if I go ahead and change this to, instead of screen space overlay, I change it to world space, right? It says a world space camera may not work without a specified event camera. Well, that's fine. We have main camera. We'll go throw that in there. We're going to change its properties. So I'm just going to shrink down the size of this canvas to be more or less the size of the button, something like that. And I'll move my button back. Oh, whoops. Back to my button. I'll just throw it inside my canvas here. And I could have just hit 0, 0. It automatically kind of pushes UI things around when you scale your canvas. But let's just alter that a little bit. Make a nice big button for us to press, right? Great. Okay, so I've got my canvas with my button in it. Now, if I wanted to scale this button down or put it inside my world, I need to use the canvas to do so. I don't want to start moving my button around, right? I don't want to do this. I'm going to start scaling it and putting in my scene and rotating and doing all this fun stuff, right? Because it's really going to jack up your whole situation if you do that. Okay, so we want to keep our buttons inside our canvas, and to do that, what I was just doing, instead of on the button, we're going to do it on the canvas. So see how we're rotating the parent around, not the object. The object will always just sit inside the canvas at 0, 0, but the canvas will tell us where we're going to place it, right? So again, I'm going to just move my canvas around. I'm going to scale it down, and I'm going to put it into my scene. So we'll go 0, 0, right there. And let's just shrink this down to something reasonable. So we'll turn it. Again, I'm doing this on my canvas, not on my button. Button will just follow suit. All right. And because I have a canvas too, one of the nice things is, you can add more to it if you want. But typically, if you're using world space buttons, you want to just have multiple canvases with multiple buttons kind of sitting in your scene. You don't want like one canvas. I usually just use one canvas per UI element if they're world space elements. So if they're just kind of floating in your scene, or if they're on an object around it, use multiple canvases to hold each one of those. There's nothing wrong with doing that. So in here, I'm just going to come in here. I'm going to change my button text size. We can see it really quickly. Let's go to our text. Let's make that a little bit bigger. More like that say launch. All right. Let's change our button text to something like red. And we'll change our text to something like, I don't know, yellow. Yellow sounds good. And maybe make it bold. All right. There you go. Perfect. Okay. And maybe I'll just make my button semi-translucent so I can see through it a little bit. Great. Now, if you want stylized text, I haven't got into this yet in the class, but Unity has Text Mesh Pro built into it. We'll get into this later to make our text look amazing. The standard kind of basic text is what I'm using right now. Unity has that built in as well. But if you want fancier, cooler text with things like drop shadows and gradients and all that fun stuff, you use what's called, if we go to Game Object, UI, you're going to use button Text Mesh Pro. And that'll give your text much more options to it. There is a little bit of a thing where you have to load in fonts and render out a font sheet and all kinds of stuff to get it to work properly. But we'll get into that later to make our stuff look super amazing. Okay. But like I said, because we're using a canvas, we can add other stuff to this canvas. So I have a button in there, but maybe I'm going to add a little warning, I don't know, thing in here that says assets. Let's go to Game Object, UI. Let's just add some text, right? And the text is going to say, don't press or something, right? Do not press this, right? Do not press, right? And we'll make that bold, and maybe we'll make that white, right? And we'll put that right above it. All right, so if I look in my game view, I should have, there we go, we got our little, so if this was like an AI, or I'm sorry, an AR object seeing our scene, we would have this little game object that says do not press launch kind of following the island. It would sit right in front of it, right? Typically when you're doing AR stuff, this is exactly how you do it. If you're putting little UI elements or buttons on them to activate, they're just basically these canvases just kind of sitting in your scene, world space canvases, okay? And that's great too if you want to have like, even a title of the project, right? A lot of times like people make these little mini games and they have almost like a start screen title that just kind of sits on the tabletop, and then they have like their actual action happening over here and then credits over here or whatever. Yeah, it's good for that kind of stuff too if you just want to like put those around the scene. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to actually have this button do something, right? So if we click on our button, remember all buttons have these inherent actions, and this is kind of just the easy way to make things happen in Unity. So anytime you want to trigger an action without coding or getting anything crazy, you can just use these on-click events to kind of force things to happen inside of Unity. And to do that, if we click on our button right here, you'll notice at the bottom we've got on-click. What we're going to do is create a new event, right? So I'm going to access the rocket object. So I'm going to go down to rocket, access the rocket object, and I'm going to give it a function. Well, that function is its animator, so I'm going to click on function, go to its animator because we set up an animator for it, and I'm going to set the trigger of that animator to launch, right? So when this button is clicked, right, play launch, right? Now remember, on my rocket animator, right, when I go into my scene here, go to the animator, right, I set up this little parameter called launch, right? And all that was in the transition from its idle state to launch. I clicked on the transition. I told it, hey, don't play through to the next one. Let's use a condition instead, which I set up as launch, which is this guy right here. And all that's doing, all that's saying in code basically is set the trigger, which is this little Boolean right here. It's just turning that on and off, right? So it's saying, hey, when clicked, make that happen, right? And you can actually debug it yourself when you're playing the game. If you open up this animator and click that, it'll play through if you click that button and stuff, right? If you want to test it before you do it, right? But all that that's doing on that button is essentially activating that little Boolean, right? Now, the next thing I'm going to do is we have our rocket smoke, right? So on my rocket, I've got my rocket trail. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off to start. But then when the button is clicked, the great thing is with these on-click events is you can add as many things as you want happening with these buttons at any time, right? You don't have to have just one. You can have like 100 different things happen when one button's clicked, right? So I'm going to turn on the rocket smoke when it's launched, right? So to do that, I'm going to come to here, add a new on-click event, and I'm going to access the rocket trail smoke, which I turned off, right? And I'm going to turn it on. So under its function settings, I'm going to go to its game object. I'm going to say, hey, let's set it active, okay? When you go to game object set active, it's going to give you this little box. So this box is in direct correlation to this little box at the top of any game object. So this tells you whether an object is on or off, or active or inactive, right? So when you say game object set active, it's basically saying, well, what state do you want it? Do you want it active or non-active? So by default, it gives you a non-active state, right? But it already is non-active, right? We already have it turned off. So we want to have it turned on by that button, right? So what we're saying is, on this button, when you use this action, let's go ahead and turn rocket smoke on, right? Make sense? So we launch the rocket, we turn the smoke on, everything's good. So let's go ahead and test it out, right? So, and let's go to my other thing I got to test really quickly. Well, I'll show you by default, anytime you make an animation in Unity, it's always going to loop that animation. So if we go ahead and play our game right now, let's go to game, maximize on play, let's play it. Right, so if I press, right, there goes my rocket, boom. See how it loops and it keeps going, right? So by default in Unity, anytime you create an animation, it's always going to set it to looped as a default set, right? That's for things like idles and other stuff. It automatically does that no matter what animation you make. It's always going to make it loop unless you specifically tell it, hey, don't make it a looping animation. So it's really easy to fix that. In Unity, if we come down to the animations, we have our rocket idle, right, which is looping. That's fine. It's an idle state. That can loop. I don't care. But the launch state, we just want it to go once. So if you look in the inspector settings, you see how it has this loop time, right, and it's checked. So by default, anytime you create an animation, it'll always have that already checked, right? So all you need to do is find your animation that you created and just turn off the animation. So now when I play it, and I press my key, should go and then stop, right? Exactly what we want, right? Now, let's say we wanted to have that rocket explode or do something awesome, right? So we can use, so not only can you use buttons to do events in Unity, but you can also use just colliders and objects in Unity to trigger events as well. Now, it does require a little bit of coding to do that, but you're in luck because there's some really good assets on the asset store that are free that let you do the exact same thing as well. You just need to throw the script on those particular ones. The one that I use is awesome. I've been using it actually for quite some time. Works totally fine. I'll show you the script. We'll import it into the project. We'll add it to a collider. And what we're going to do is when this rocket does its little traversal and then hits the island right here, I'm going to make a collider on my object right here. So when this rocket collides with this collider, let's instantiate a particle effect and maybe like a explosion animation or whatever, and we'll get rid of the rocket and other stuff. So we can do exactly what we did on that button, with an object as well. We can literally have all these on trigger events with an object to do the same thing that the button has when something hits it. So we can say, hey, on trigger, right, when rocket enters, we can have it disappear, but let's load in an explosion effect as well as play like an explosion sound, right? We can do that as well. Really, really simple. It's super high level. This is kind of basic events 101 in Unity. Very simple stuff to do, and it just gets kind of more advanced from here the farther down the well you want to go, right? So what I'm going to do is exactly that. We're going to make a collider. We're going to have that rocket launch and go into it. Let's back our camera up so we can see what we're doing in the scene a little bit. We want to see that rocket, right? So let's go ahead and do that. Let's play it really quickly just to see, is that going to work for us? I think so. Oh man, it goes really high. That's fine. Bam. All right. Okay. So on this trigger, a couple things we want to happen, right? So we want, one, when we launch our rocket, rocket's going to go, it's going to hit. We want to turn this particle effect off, right? We also want to kill this rocket or turn that off. But in its place, we want to make a really cool giant explosion effect, right? And we want to replace that rocket with that explosion effect, right? So let's go ahead and make those different things happen really quickly. So I can come in here. On my rocket, I think I'm going to make because I am going to turn the rocket trail off, we might notice a pop if it's going to turn off. So I'm going to turn its settings down a little bit so it's quicker. So its duration for each of these, I'm just going to change that to, let's do 0.5. So the trail just doesn't stay on there forever. And lifetime, we'll do 0.5 as well. So let's just play that really quickly and see how that looks. Launch. There you go. All right, great. Okay. So let's go ahead. I think we can fix that rocket animation a little bit. Let's just fix that up, and I'll just move the timelines around. Let's bring that a little bit closer. So it comes up and then boom. All right, that's better. Play that really quickly. Goes and then bam. Okay, awesome. Okay, so what I'm going to do is in here first create my collider, and I'm just going to reuse this Pro Builder launch platform that we had, and I'll just Command D, put that over here. And let's see, is that going to land right into that? Let's just make sure. Let's play it. Launch should run right into that, right? Bam, perfect. Okay. So I'm going to turn the renderer off on this. So it's mesh renderer. Let's just go ahead and turn that off. We're going to leave its collider. We're going to make that a trigger, and then we'll add our code to it. So what I use is on the asset store. If we go here, collision propagators. This is the easiest one I've found. It just works really, really well. Collision propagators. This one right here. It's free, which is great. The guy who made this did a really good job on it. It's just like a really clean script. And the great thing is it doesn't derive from monodevelop, so it won't conflict with anything in your project ever. It just keeps working version after version after version. It's basically like core C#. So he built his own library and everything for it. So it just works. It's great. There's never any conflicting problems. You won't get any errors with it. At least I say that now, but we'll see. So I'm going to say import, bring that in. Okay, yeah, no events, we should be good. So Itchy Owl is the name of the developer, right? So they have a little folder here, Itchy Owl. So in my scene, I need to, under my, let's just go ahead and, where is my, what's this guy? Oh, island, okay, island, and then we've got our collider. So I'm gonna go ahead and name that. I'll just put it outside my island for now so I can see it. And I'm just gonna call this collider, right? Or event collider, we'll call it event collider, so we really know what we're dealing with. Event collider, right? So this is as easy as literally finding the script that we need, and there is a bunch of different scripts in here he has to do different things. But if we go into collision propagators, scripts, I believe it is implementations. I've just done this a while, so I was able to find them. If we go to 3D Unity events, there we go. We got trigger enter, trigger events, trigger exit. So we'll use trigger enter. All right. So on this particular event collider, I'm just going to add trigger enter. There we go. So you can access it by a layer mask. So right here, we can say, hey, use a layer mask, and what do we want to put in that layer mask? So we can go ahead and create one. We'll create one for our rocket. If I click on our rocket right here, let's go ahead and make a new layer. So I'm going to add one, and I'm just going to call it rocket. All right. On my event collider, I'm going to come down to layer mask, and we're going to access rocket. So if anything under the layer rocket hits this collider, make something happen, right? Super easy. You'll see just like the buttons, it has the same type of thing, right? We've got trigger, enter, collider. Well, the list is empty. Well, what do we want to do? Well, boom. Let's go ahead and access our rocket. So if the rocket hits this, we're going to turn it off. So we'll go to the game object, and we'll just turn off the rocket. Set active, and we'll make sure it's not there, right? And then we can also turn off the collider if we want to. Those are great for if you have like a game where you run into something once, you don't want to have it there again. It has some nice auto destruction or one-shot properties in here that you could reuse it over and over again. Because if it just sits there all the time, it's going to keep doing the same thing unless you tell it, hey, no, kill yourself or only play once or whatever. But for now, this is fine because we're just having this hit that. So let's just try it really quickly and see if it works. If it does, that'll be great. So we can come in here, play our game, say all goes well. We're going to launch, and it stayed on. Okay. Didn't work. All right, let's see what's going on. So we've got our event collider. We've got convex is okay. Use layer mask, rocket, trigger. What's that? You said the rocket's layer mask. Oh, did I? Oh, I did. That's what it was. Good call. So the rocket's set to layer. So yes. There we go. So now you're right. Oh, no, still not working. Okay. Okay. Everything was going so smooth, and then you get to this part, and you're like, why is it not working? All right. So rocket's set to rocket. Great. Let's choose a tag, too. Let's do that. Let's add a tag. Or actually, let's go back. Let's go to our rocket. Let's just make it player for now. And we'll go to our event collider. And here's trigger. That should be fine. Say layer mask. Let's do that. Just in case. Let me see. Runtime. Turn the rocket off. That's what we're trying to do. Right? So this should move around. Oh! Maybe it's because these aren't set to trigger. Let's try that. Let's see. Nope, still not working. Man, everything was going so smooth until this moment. Okay. Let's see. Options. Layer mask. Trigger enter collider. Maybe it's, let me try collision enter. Let me just try that really quickly. Collision enter, let's do rocket. Same thing. Let's just turn it off. I don't know why this would make a difference, but you never know. And we'll just go set active. We'll turn that off. So let's see if that's it. Maybe this is because it's set to is trigger. Let me turn that off too. Let's try that. No? Huh. Okay. I don't know what's going on. Everything is going so smooth. No, it shouldn't have anything to do with it. Let's see. Oh wait, you know what? I said it was. Oh, hold on, let me try this. Try this really quickly. Watch. Man. Okay. These are super fun.
Print out console stuff with your propagator?
I don't think so. Let's see. Oh. Okay, let's see. Play. Let's look at the console.
So when you try to do the does it ever say like, hey, this slide? In your scene view, are they actually colliding?
That's a good question. Let's see. They're colliding.
That's a good thing.
That's a direct hit. What's that?
Maybe like apply the script to the rocket.
No. It should be fine. Let's see. I think I'm missing something here. Let's see. No, it wouldn't. It's got a collider, so it should be fine. Unless it's. Material. Just for kicks, let me just do this and see what happens real quick. No. Rocket. Turn it off. Let's see.
I feel like that's a good idea.
What's that?
To try a rigid body that's just set to kinematic. Because I think collisions do need a rigid body.
That's good. All right, let me see
One
that.
of them has to be a rigid body and one of them has to be a collider for not trigger stuff.
Okay.
But I
Let's
actually
see.
feel like that's true even for trigger.
Rigid body is kinematic. Let's try that. That's what it was. That's what it was. Good call. Good call. I'm like, no. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're absolutely right. I take. Okay, you're like, dude, I knew it. Yeah, okay. So yeah, you must have a rigid body attached to it. My bad. Okay, that's why. It seems like the collider is all it needed, right? So let's just see if we turn off this. I think either one of these would work. But let's just say collision. Let's just make sure. Play. Oh no, it's the trigger. Okay. So this one is a no-go. But let's put the trigger back on there, which
I think
was.
it's just because that's set to his trigger.
Oh, gotcha. But if that wasn't, then it would probably
So maybe
work.
right now it would work again.
I just deleted it.
Except that you
Yeah. Let's see. So let's put this back on. Use layer mask, rocket. Okay, and then we'll say turn off the rocket. So we'll go for our rocket. And let's go ahead and turn it off. Great. Oh wait, but this would need a rigid body also, right? 2 rigid bodies. It would need another one, I believe,
to do collisions.
to do collisions. Yeah, so you'd need a rigid body for that, and then we would make that kinematic, and then I think this would do the same thing. Nope, totally wrong. All right, let's use the trigger. So we'll remove that. Go ahead and take this off. All else fails, just keep trying again. All right. Trigger enter, use layer mask, rocket, and we'll use our rocket. And we'll go ahead and turn it off. Hopefully this works.
This time you might need to put it back to his trigger.
There we go. We're good. Okay, great.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. All right.
Is
So
the rocket set to his trigger?
the rocket, good call. The rocket is not. It's just because it has a mesh collider and a rigid body. It's just looking for that. But it's basically using the layer as a trigger. So if that layer hits it, then trigger, the animation. So okay, so in here, let's go ahead and play it. Launch. Great. Okay. We could probably even move this down a little bit so we get a little more. Where's our event collider? Now let's put this like right here. Make it go into the rock a little bit, right? So right there. So try that out. Launch. Okay, great. All right. So just like the button, now that we have this set up on our event collider, sorry, that was way more complicated than it needed to be. But I will say that will save you tons of work just by using that little script right there, like tons and tons of work. Scripting that all the time would just be a nightmare. Just being able to drag that little script on things like helps out so much. Because you can use them for all kinds of things. Like you can literally duplicate this over and over and over again and use it for a variety of situations. Okay, so what we want to do is turn off our rocket, but let's go ahead and make an explosion, right? So let's go in here and we'll go to our particle system and we'll just make a one-shot explosion and maybe even a fire too. Sure, let's have a fire start. All right, so we'll start our little fire here on the side of the island and we'll make this loop so it'll start up. Let's go ahead and change its size a little bit, something like that. So if I were to stop, let's play it. So that starts up, great. Let's make its duration, 5 is fine. Let's make its speed, go 2. That, great, so it has like a starting time and then it dies out. All right, let's change its color over lifetime. And we'll just have it fade out over time. All right. And maybe its color will change also a little bit. So maybe it's more. Over time, it's going to go to orange or red. Let's change this to be. There we go. Get our nice fire effect in there, right? So what will happen is when we turn this on, because it's a particle effect, it has to start up, right? So we can say, hey, start up, right? So after it explodes, then we can have a nice little fire that just stays there forever, right?
Can you add emissions?
Add emissions
Yeah, like
to the particle effect.
Yeah.
We could just put a light that we turned up on there if you wanted to. Like you could take a point light and animate it basically. So turn it on and the animation just says, hey, get intensified, but it'd have to be a separate object to do that. Okay, so we've got our fire effect, right? We'll just call this particle fire, right? We'll go ahead and turn that off. And then I'm going to duplicate particle fire, turn it on, and we'll make this a one-shot particle effect. So it's not going to loop, but it's just going to play out. So when it hits, we'll do a nice explosion. For its shape, we'll do a sphere. And its speed's going to be something like 8. Play it really quickly. All right. Let's go ahead and let's make the speed a little faster. Let's go like 20. And let's make the size of these a little bit smaller. And the shape of the sphere, let's go ahead and put it right about there. And the emission, let's go ahead and make, I don't know, 100 of those guys. All right. The lifetime of these guys, we're going to make them quick, so we'll make them like 2, as well as their lifetime. And so let's go ahead and play that really quickly. Stop. All right, that's a huge effect. So let's have that just go 1. Duration, we'll just have 0.5. Be super quick. Play. All right, there's our big explosion. Their start size a little bit bigger, and then we'll have them taper out really quickly. Their lifetime, we'll make that 0.25. We'll make those super quick. Let's play that. Bam. There you go. It's more of an explosion, right? Then what we'll do is their shape over time, size over lifetime, we'll have that taper out. So they start big and then they get small. That's what play that. Bam. Something like that. Boom. Boom. Right. something more dramatic. I don't know, something like that. Let's see. Okay. Now we can just go ahead and make that a little more exciting by just doubling it up. And we'll add a little more speed to these guys. We'll go 30. We'll make their size small. We'll change their color over lifetime to something like white. Maybe we'll even give them a little teensy bit of gravity too. Right. Maybe make those guys a little bit smaller. Let's see. Maybe a little bit smaller than that. Start size. Okay. This real quick. 25, great, start speed. Now we're at 25. Great, put that in here. Alright, so there's our nice little explosion, right? Okay, we'll just call this explosion. Okay, we'll turn our explosion off as well. So basically, when our event collider, let's put this down by all these little events, right? Put it at the bottom here. So when this hits, let's go ahead and make 2 more of these little options. So we'll turn our particle fire on. This guy will just say, hey, turn this on. And our explosion, we're going to go ahead and turn that on as well. Turn that guy on as well. And then let's just get a cool explosion sound too, right? So, I don't know. Explosion, SFX, MP3. Oh wait, you know what? There's got to be one on the asset store. Let's see, what do we got here? Explosion sound. Free. Sound effects retro pack, sure. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Grenade sound effects, perfect. Get these guys, import them. Awesome.
So, are the free ones, are they like, let's say, for building games and stuff, are the assets like free? How's the licensing?
License, whatever you want, they're free. Yeah. It's a good thing about the Unity asset stores is like you can use it for any. There is no. Some of them that are paid ones, the free ones are fair game. Use them whatever you want. Some of the paid ones, they say, hey, please buy more licenses per game type thing. But at the end of the day, you know, how many games are you gonna make, right? So if you buy one, you say, oh yeah, I used it for that game. But I would rather buy assets at the asset store because they're meant for that. Part of the licensing agreement is you're basically agreeing to allow them for game development, right? Okay, so in here, let's go to our sound real quick. Where's our grenade sounds? Here we go, grenade sounds. Where are these? Grenade. Sounds like an explosion, right? Let's see. Perfect. Okay, awesome. Is that good or is this better? That's better. That's much better. All right, so we'll put that in our scene. Grenade 7 short. And, you know, game sounds are just like game objects, right? So if you're using them in your scene, you just literally put them in the hierarchy of your scene or wherever you want, and you can turn them on and off just like you would. Anytime you turn a sound off or turn a sound on, it's automatically, if it's set to play on awake, it'll just play the sound when you turn it on. So you don't have to worry about accessing the sound and saying play this audio. You could leave it on in your scene, but the minute you start your game, it's just going to play the sound immediately, but then you can play it again if you want. Typically, it's better to keep it off, and then when your game loads, turn it on, or turn off the play on awake and just play it, play the sound by button click or whatever, right? So on here, Grenade 7 short, I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. And on our event collider, same thing. We're going to add another element, and like I said, you can add all kinds of stuff in here. So we're going to go to Grenade, and we're just going to turn that on when this hits, right? So let's go ahead and turn that on. So let's play it. Let's launch it. And, all right, there we go. All right, so pretty easy, right? And that was all done with like no coding, which is pretty cool, right? You can do all kinds of fun stuff with no coding, just using event triggers and colliders. You know, it's a really easy way to make things happen. I know there was a little bit of hurdles in there to make that accessible, but we got it working, so it was all good. Thank you for the rigid body technique on that. I should remember that. Okay, let's go ahead and add a rocket blast off sound too, just to add a little more to this. So we'll go to the asset store and just find I don't know, rocket sound. Oh man, all kinds of rocket sounds. Let's say, is there any free ones? Pricing. Oh, there is no free rocket sounds. All right, let's see, free rocket. SFX. There we go. Man, there's no free ones on this either. Seriously? Spaceship. Make do, right? Let's see, free assets. There we go. Retro sci-fi sounds. Sure, I'm sure there's something in there, right? Let's download. Let's get those in here.
We could have done like a sound like a tornado sound or a wind sound.
That would probably be good. Yeah. Let's see. All right. So did I get the sounds in here? Let's see. Did I get them? Channel, no. Free. Import. There we go. Put those in. Oh man, I don't know if these are gonna work. We'll see. There's got to be something in here to use. Okay. Rock package. Retro sci-fi. Oh man, I don't know. Loops, machine. What is that? That's not gonna work. These are terrible. Let's see. How about that? This is our that's our rocket launch sound. All right. So we've got our notification. So on our original button, if we go into our button in here, same way, just go ahead and add the sound. Notification, when it turns on, we'll set it to active, and this guy will turn off. There we go. So should, there we go. Right, so I don't know, something stupid, right? But pretty easy to do, right? So, you know, for your first test, right, your first project, make your island, put 3 things on there, so 3 buttons that trigger 3 different things. Doesn't have to be a rocket, it can be whatever you want. It could be a little dude that pops up or appears or whatever. It's up to you. Make it exciting. And just go for it. Put those actions in there. If you need my help with it, I'm here to help you. Beyond this, so this is just basics. I want you guys to learn triggers, how they work. I'll take this project and I'll throw it up on the Canvas as a Google Drive link so you guys can download it if you just want to use it and extract what I got out of here. That's fine. And then we'll go from there. Okay? Sound good? Cool? Right on. That help? You guys, yeah? That cool? Yeah, yes, no? All right. Right on. Okay, so have at it. Build your islands. We'll use the rest of the class as a work time. Just go for it. Build away. Do your thing. If you need to take a break, you can go ahead and take a break.
Does your island have to look like a rocket?
No, you can do whatever you want. It's just think of them like, so the way I want to show these off is, yeah, what I want to do is, once we finish all our islands, I would love to get all the, like, let's not make them too crazy, so don't go, like, too nuts on the design of it. Just think of, like, a simplistic island, okay? Sorry, yeah, I should have said that. Like, don't go photorealistic, like, craziness, right? We don't need, like, you know, Far Cry sitting in the room, right? Just something simple with some trees and whatever. The design's up to you. You can do whatever you want. It can be a planet, it can be an island, whatever. But what I would like to do is be able to place these all around the room for our demo. I'll bring in Magic Leap and we'll get it all set up with that so we can put these all around the room and activate the buttons on them. Each of us can take turns like checking it out and that kind of stuff. All right. So that's kind of the plan. That's the end game. What I want to do with these, and show them off. All right.
AR experience.
That's what I want to do. Yeah, like put them all each in one AR experience because there's literally, the cool thing about Magic Leap is in their creator kit they literally have like a touch script that you can use on Unity UI buttons. So we can literally load it up and launch these, instantiate these around the scene, and just click on them and they'll work like out of the box. So it should be pretty easy to use. So that's going to be the next step. So we'll have a big, cool, demo to show off. So it should be fun. All right. We should record it. That's what we should do. Once we have it done, we'll record it and we'll throw it on the OCC website. Look what the AR guys did.
They have like Instagram for like artists, for OCC artists or something.
That'd be cool. That would be rad, is if we had the islands interact with each other. So like, maybe one island's attacking another island and shooting cannonballs at it or something. That would be cool. That's next level. That's not. We'll get there. We'll get there. I also want to. I will also make this for. So once we do the Magic Leap test and have fun with that, we're also going to make this for iPad as well. We've got like 30 iPads in this department that we can use to test on. They're actually in this cart right here.